So, welcome everybody to this free monthly webinar on how to nail your niche and your ideal client archetype. So, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to explain to you my very personal connection with my journey. Oh, come on. Sorry, I've got the beach ball of death going. I'm going to share with you in a minute about why this topic is such a big, important topic, why it's so important that for me and how it changed my business, but also why I focus on this so much in the brand messaging and positioning work that I do with my clients. So for those who have don't know me yet, nice to meet you. I'm very excited to have you here. I am an ex-Disney consultant turned business mentor and brand messaging strategist. So my passion is all about helping remarkable consultants and coaches use their strengths, use their experiences to create a business, not just a business and a brand, not just one that, they like or that helps them stand out, but one that they love. At the end of this webinar, I will be sharing with you oh geez, I don't know why this keeps moving. I will be sharing with you my framework of how to communicate the value of what you do. Specifically, what do you do? What do you say when you're at a networking event? Someone asks you what you do. This is going to be the framework that you're going to use. Again, as I mentioned, I will be staying on for a Q&A at the end. So if you got some questions, add it to the chat. If there's something very pressing, like during the master classes, I go through content, feel free to raise your hand and just say, hey, could you just please explain this before you move on to the next question? That would be great. And if you have more specific questions or something that you want to have addressed towards the end, please feel free to use the chat for that. So this is the webinar for you. You are in the right place if you are tired of spinning and second guessing yourself and you want to get clear and confident on who you serve as a consultant or coach. We're going to talk about this a lot. Is you don't serve like anybody who wants a consultant or anybody who wants a coach. There's somebody very specific that you are meant to serve. So we're going to uncover that. The other thing that would tell you that you're in the right place is if you're the kind of person where, you share what you do and the other person's like, oh, interesting. Good luck with that. And you want to turn that around, that this is the right webinar for you. So we're going to get started on that. And then finally, you want to start attracting more of the right clients. So you're getting this suspicion that there are some people that you really get excited about working with. And then there's some like, yeah, I could do decent work with, but they're just not paying me the way I want, or I'm not enjoying the engagement the way that I want. This is the right masterclass for you. So if all of this sounds good and you feel like, yes, you're nodding your head along with me, then this is the right masterclass for you. The big question is, how do you make this happen? And the other question you might have is, why is this so important? Why can't I just go out there and get clients? I will tell you, this is the most painful part of my story. So I left Disney. I was an internal consultant for a number of years. I left Disney and I started my own consulting business. And when I was about 5 years into it, I really wanted to pivot my business from consulting to something similar to what I do now. But I didn't necessarily know what it was that I wanted to do now. And this pivot that I went through was so much harder than even leaving Disney and starting my own consulting business. Out of all the things that I've done career-wise, this is by far the most challenging. And what I did, which I don't recommend, is I'm like, well, I didn't really put a lot of strategy into it because I already had like a business going. I already had a website. I already had following, at a YouTube channel and all of that. I'm like, oh, well, I know what I'll do. This seems obvious. I know a lot about organizational consulting. I know what I'll do. I'll just create a course to train other consultants on my best practices. I was on this part of this global forum of consultants, and people kept raising their hands of saying like, hey, I just landed an org design project. Anyone got anything? And I was thinking like, well, I got lots of stuff I can provide. I'll just make a course. This thing's going to sell like hotcakes. This is going to totally work for me. And then what happened? I went and hired my web guy, Chad. So Chad and I worked together on my business and my brand many, many times. And so I hired him to help me work on the courses. So I flew up to Cleveland where he lived to record the video for these courses. And he kept asking me about like, well, who's your ideal client? Who are you passionate about helping and all of that? And we were at dinner like the day before this video recording, which was awful. And he's like, well, we all have our failures. I'm like, well, that's the most interesting pep talk I've ever heard for, a full day video session. And he's like, well, we all have our failures. And the problem with what Chad said, I went and recorded those videos. I tried selling these courses, and the problem was Chad was right. It turned into like the worst time of my entire business. I tried selling these courses, didn't do any market research, didn't really, I'd really clarify like why I was doing these things. I was just manifesting the stuff that I knew. And I wound up like trying to sell these courses and trying to sell these two audiences, on my website. I destroyed my results. It was a nightmare. And so I had to get really smart. I had to like really figure out like what in the heck am I going to do here? And so what I did is this one simple thing that changed everything is I stopped pushing what I wanted to sell onto the market and say, this is what you all want. I want you to do this. And I started listening to what the people who are coming to me actually wanted. I had this opportunity to be a guest on this guy's podcast, and I got lots of people calling, like super interested. And instead of just like, hey, I'm going to sell you my courses, I asked some questions. I'm like, well, what was it that I said that resonated with you? And they kept saying the same things over and over again. It's like, I love what you said about strengths, and I loved what you said about this. And then when people would ask me questions about like their transitions, like, it's like, I have all these great ideas, and it's like, you're really good at packaging information. And I'm like, huh, well, that's really interesting because the things that I'm really passionate about and the things that I'm really good at is what people actually wanted from me. And there's something in there where it's like, once I started dialing into this person that I really wanted to help, this magic happened with what I really wanted to do, like selling OD courses on organizational consulting. Like, that's something I can do, but it's not like this is what I'm put on earth to do. It's not like everybody wants like my 5-step approach to an org design project. Like, that's not what I'm known for. That's not what people wanted. And that's why I get very passionate about the most important thing in everything with your business. Everything from a branding standpoint, from a business standpoint, marketing effective standpoint, sales effectiveness standpoint, everything begins and ends with first who, then what. Your niche isn't what you do. It's who you serve and the problem that you solve. And then going from there to say, all right, well, where is that, like, how does that person see who your competitors are? Where are those competitors falling short? And then that's where you fit in. And so where I figured out where my niche is like, yeah, people wanted to talk about the strengths. So then I compared myself to other business mentors, business coaches, other people who help consultants and coaches. And they all focus so much on, like just quickly get your website up or just get out there and get clients, or they focus on the sales strategies, and they're all on the back end, but they all overlooked this brand stuff that I love doing, this foundational stuff. That became my niche. I created a niche in some ways because everybody else was overlooking it. So that's where the critical thing is. First, who, then what? I'm going to take a beat here. Does this resonate with you? Does this make sense? Questions, comments, feedback on big aha. Any hearts to me for my horrible, sad business story of when I really screwed everything up? So we're all good. We'll keep moving on. All right. So let's talk about some of the benefits. Why is it so? Oh, thank you for the heart. I appreciate that. So let's talk about some of the benefits. Why is it so important to identify your ideal client? Your ideal client is how you stand out in the market. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about Scott later on in a second, but this was the big game changer for him. So he was a finance leader turned like fractional CFO. And he was working with all kinds of startup companies, and it was really hard for him to stand out. He was just relying predominantly on word of mouth. So when we got into this work, we really identified like who he loves were crypto business owners and influencers. And that made everything so super easy for him to stand out, because when we looked at his competitive set, it was primarily like accounting firms, and most accountants don't understand or are terrified about crypto because crypto is like such a new currency. So he was able to get clear on that. Once he started talking to his crypto owners, like we weren't even done with his website, and he already landed like $200,000 in new sales because like these people were desperate. Like, so he started talking about like, are you making a ton of money and then losing it at tax time because of this particular issue? So it allowed him to create the right messages that attracted the right people, and then selling them was super easy because he had the right offer. Siri's another one of my clients. Another big benefit is writing copy easier and faster. So Siri is one of those people who she's a parent coach. So she's a former principal and an administrator turned parent coach. She was like dealing with that problem around, trying to network and tell people like this is what she's all about. And she was one of those people who got that, good luck with that. That was interesting when she was trying to explain it. So that's when we started working more specifically. Like it's not just parents that she helps. It was specifically working parents who were dealing with very difficult younger children and how that was affecting their career, how that was affecting their lives. So instead of talking about parent coach and her methodology, she switched it and started talking about like you don't have time and you don't have the bandwidth. You want to be a great parent. You have a lot of aspirations for your kids, but now you really don't know how to manage all of this and a job. You need support. Enter me. Does that make sense? Like how that really helps out when you get that clarity on the ideal client and makes that conversation easier. Katie's one of my clients who was doing a bang up job. So she's an internationally best-selling author. She's a speaker. She does all kinds of things. And so she was kind of stuck in these gigs where she was just doing all of this work. And once she identified like, okay, this is who I help, like it changed up like how she thought about her offers. And she was able to create an offer that was more scalable and something that was more impactful. And then for all my clients, I could have like done tons of pictures. Everybody's about growing the right business. So I firmly believe if we are a purpose-driven consultants and coaches, we have a purpose and that purpose is tied to the person that we want to help. And so you start the right business. Like once you get really clear on who this person is, then it not only changes your marketing effectiveness, it changes like your energy around your business. It's like, I just really want to get out there. I want to help this person. When you start dialing into the ideal client, the problem you want to help, it's like now your compassion is activated. So now you're going to write copy for your website in a way that's more compelling, but you might create content. You might start posting more on social media. It's like, dang, I really want to help them. I want to do like, I have this webinar that I'm doing here. It's like, I really want to help these people. I want to help like people who are younger versions of me struggling with the same problems I was struggling with so that they can activate their potential. So there's a lot of things that you can do. So, and there's that happiness, the satisfaction, the alignment with your purpose. I can go on and on. So consider for yourself, why do you want to work on nailing your niche and identifying your ideal client? What difference would it make for you? And if there's something different that I did not capture, I'd love to hear it. If there's something that, are the benefits that I just went over relevant for you, or is there something that I missed? Yes, Alexa.
Hey, yeah, I'm Alexa. No, I love what you said about bringing joy, really feeling that joy at work. And in addition, just really feeling, I want to really bring that ease and flow, which is similar to what you were saying, but that feels relevant.
I think that it's similar, but different. I like what you're talking about with the ease and flow, because there is an ease where it's like, okay, I have this common audience and like now I could even offer more value. I get them. I don't have to like stretch to get into their heads because I automatically
Yeah.
understand them. I think that is a little different. I definitely would add that. That's a great one.
hmm
Anything else that we would add?
No, hi, my name is Carrie. I like what you said about the specificity. I'm just starting out with a business, just getting started, and I've been wrestling with this for a few months. And I think the temptation is to stay general because
Mm-hmm.
you think you can help everybody, you want to help everybody, but it doesn't work that way. So I appreciate what you said about getting specific.
Well, we are about to get into the scarcity issue and why we might want to do that. But that is a good point too around that. Thank you for sharing. Indy, were you going to add something?
Nope, just popped in. Thanks.
Oh, cool. Good to see you. All right. So let's talk about why are some common objections. So far, it seems like we're all on board with me for the most part, but then there are common objections that people would have about identifying their ideal client. So objection number one, I'm a consultant or coach. I can help anybody who needs expert advice. coaches are like, from a coaching standpoint, I totally understand the ICF perspective is that I'm a coach. I have a certain process. I listen and I can help frame things and all of that. But from a branding standpoint, there's some people that you're going to work with better than others, or a consultant is like, I know about business, but you don't always know about every business. So when I was starting my consulting business, I came out of Disney. I know how to work with the Fortune 100. I know how to work with a large, complex organization. That was a much better fit for me comparison to my colleague Dan, who came out of an insurance agency, and he really liked working with these smaller companies. So it's like you can help everybody, but the truth of the matter is, no consultant or coach is the perfect fit for every single client, every situation, every single need. So the fact is you can't help everybody, or you can't help everybody equally as well. You could think about the work that you might have done as an employee where you served internal clients. And it's like some of them, they really resonated with you. They loved you. When you showed up and you did your thing, they loved you. And some of them, like, yeah, they appreciated you, but you didn't get the same kind of traction. So the thing is that if you want to love your business, it begins with loving your clients. There's some that you will love more. I could promise you right now, if you are currently in business and you have clients, there's some of them that you get really excited when they call and it's like, yes, I can't wait to get on a coaching call with them today or a consulting call with them. And then there's some of them, it's like, oh God, do I have to have this person today? Fine, I'll do it. It's like, yeah, when you kind of feel like you have to get your energy up to help them, like they're clearly not your ideal client. They might be paying you, but that doesn't make them your ideal client. And then this goes to what Alexa was saying earlier about flow. There's a flow where it's like we kind of connect, we resonate with each other. So that's one of the objections. This is a big one. If I choose an ideal client, won't I be leaving money and opportunity on the table? Anyone feel that one? Or concerns about that one? Yeah. So here's the reality of that. If you don't choose an ideal client, you will absolutely 1,000% be leaving money and opportunity on the table. So the reason why is that the lack of ideal client clarity is the number one reason behind hit or miss marketing results and conversion challenges. It's hard, like everybody in marketing will tell you, if you're talking to everybody, you're talking to nobody, because it's not really relevant. Like, are you here? If I could have done this webinar right now on how to nail your niche in general, or how to nail your ideal client, I could have talked about it in general. It's different to say, if I were going to narrow it down and say, how to nail your niche as a small business owner, I could go here, but it makes a big difference, doesn't it, to say how to nail your niche as a consultant or a coach? Like, what difference does it make that it goes down to consultant or coach that would motivate you even to be here and for you to sign up? Or does it matter? Thoughts, comments, feedback before I move on?
I love the coaching aspect probably more, but I feel like the consulting will be more profitable.
Yeah, see, that's a myth in terms of who's got money. So this is, I should have put in that one on there, is a lot of times we don't want a niche, or we'll go after and we'll start the wrong business, because there's a myth that corporate organizations have more money than nonprofits, or organizations have more money than people, individuals. Both of them are not true. Like, everybody has money, and you could see people make really profitable, impactful businesses in both areas. The thing is about corporate, I'm glad you brought that one up. The thing about corporate that makes it different is it's just a different relationship with money. So if I'm going to corporate and I'm trying to land a client there, and I'm going to be positioning myself, first off, if you're going for corporate, you still have to niche it down and say, well, who in the organization are you going to help? And what problem are you going to solve? What size company, what industry, all of that matters. But the way that they think about the money is, I'm just like managing other people's money. So you just have to have a really solid business case to make decent money, in a corporate kind of scenario, but you have to be really good at articulating that and understanding how the buying process is. Nonprofits, as you know, Indeed, specifically, nonprofits have money. It's just a matter of like, how do you frame things in a way? And that's why the niching is so important, is you need to be able to describe what you're talking about. So if I were talking, let's say I was a coach about, doing Strengths Finder and I was going for corporate, I would have to figure out where and who. If I were going to nonprofit, I would still have to figure out like who has the problem that's most relevant. In both cases, they're probably an HR leader of some kind who would bring in somebody who has those skills, but for what situation? You could use Strength Finders as part of like, I want to help build my succession plan with the right fit talent, or I could bring in that for building highly effective executive teams. And then that's just a tool as part of that whole process. So that whole fear of missing out or where the money is that the whole idea is like, follow the passion, the money will follow. People want to hire people who are passionate about them. So if you're going to corporate and you have no corporate experience and you have no interest in corporate, they'll feel it, they'll know it. People want to work with people who really are excited about helping them. Did I answer that particular objection decent? Okay. So here's another objection. But Betsy, why do I need to do this? Can't I just go out there and find clients? That's a big objection for people who are just starting. Like, I'll just go out and get clients. And you can, because just getting out there and find clients can work for a while until it stops working. How many of you tried to build a business purely on referrals? And how long did it last until the referral network dries out? Anybody been relying on referrals? Or the other problem with referrals only is people are referring you for they may not even be the right perfect person. Your referral network isn't they're not your marketing team. They don't know you well enough. I mean, if I relied on referrals, I'd still be doing OD consulting for large organizations. If I didn't like make a change, so you have to shape the market's thinking, especially if you're pivoting from a leadership career, into your own business. You have to shape everybody's thinking about who you are. So without really getting that clarity on your target audience, you will have a very hard time scaling your profits, doing any advertisement, getting any leads from organic search. All of that will be predicated. If you hire someone to do ads, the first question they're going to ask you is, who are you targeting? If you're going to hire someone to work on your visual branding, they're going to ask you, who are you trying to help? If you're going to go hire an SEO team, they're going to ask you the same exact questions. So all roads begin and end with your ideal client clarity. Did I capture all of these objections or concerns? Is there any that I missed? If I did good enough, just give me a thumbs up and I'll continue on and I won't make you pause and wait. All right. So if we are now convinced that we're super excited to get clarity on our ideal client, this is my framework on my ideal client. These are the things that you need to know in order to get a complete ideal client archetype. An ideal client archetype is like that prototype, that example of who you want to help. So this is, and I also have a podcast. I should have put the link in here. I have a podcast that also goes into this ideal client archetype in a deeper way. I don't have it off the top of my head. Justin, if you're listening, if you can find it, if you could put it in the chat. But it starts off number one with, if I had it all my way. So the I is that. It's like, if you could fill your pipeline with this type of person, who would it be? What you want to target is not the that'll do client. You want to do the client that really sparks you into compassion and action. Like, gosh, I really want to help this person. I'm super motivated. That's the I. I use all the time in my one-on-one client work. It's like, yeah, but if I had it all my way, what would it look like for you? If you were creating, your dream business, if you had it all your way, what would it look like for you? The D represents demographics. So you have to really be able to describe explicitly, like, how old are they? Are they age range? As you go through different career stages, you have different needs and you have different priorities. Like what your needs were as a 20-year-old. I have a 20-year-old. Her goal is simply to get a job, make money, and try to figure out what she loves, but if she hits like somewhere in her 30s, she's hopefully finding her groove and moving all right along. 40s is when we usually start questioning things like, what difference have I made? What difference will I make? 50s is when we're looking at significance, legacy, and all that kind of stuff, and going on to 60s. So that matters. Age matters. Company size matters. Companies have different problems at different sizes. Industry matters. What it looks like to create success in a large hospitality organization is very different than in manufacturing. And if you are working in a B2B kind of space where you're trying to go after organizations, what level are they? How do they fit in? You really want to get that down. And then you want to layer onto that their energy. If you were with me in last month's webinar, I talked about the different archetypes of your ideal clients and how to use archetypes to create better connections with your clients. You really want to understand how do they roll so that you can create language that resonates with them. If I were talking to a sage, I would tell them like, hey, I could help you with a step-by-step solution. If I were talking to a visionary, I'd say, oh, you got a million ideas and you can't prioritize them. I'll show you how to, put some prioritization on all those ideas, whatever you're going to talk about. And then the most important part of branding in so many ways is the problem, the angst and the aspirations. What is it that they're in pain about? What is the problem that you solve? What goal does your clients have? It's not enough to say, I help organizations. It's like, well, what are you going to help them do? Like, what's the problem or context for your situation? Are you the person that they turn to when they're going from this size to this size and the wheel starts falling off and they need someone to corral all those stakeholders? Or is it like if they've capped out on sales and they can't, they're making as much money as they're losing? Like, what is that? If you're dealing with an individual, just saying like, oh, I help somebody unlock their authenticity. Like that doesn't resonate. It would be authenticity in what? I can help you create your dream career that, leverages your talents is very different than I'm going to help you, really express yourself in a book that, you've always wanted to express or whatever. And then the last part is the limitations. What's getting in their way? What's keeping them from achieving their goals? Once you understand, like, they can't solve this problem on their own, they need someone like you, then you could say, all right, here's how I position myself. But for today's focus, we're just going to talk about the I. We're going to talk about if I had it all my way, and what are some of the ideas that you can come up with to pinpoint who this person is. So this is the 5 strategies to figure that out. Before I get on there, what you're listening for. So I'm going to give you different kind of strategies to identify. Oh, great. The podcasts are in the chat. The listen for is the person and the problem that you want to solve for. So it's not just who you want to help, but it's the context. The essence of branding, which we talked about last month, is making that connection between you and a person with a problem. You think about it. If we go to the movies, we were talking about Barbie earlier, so if you go to the movies, what are you going to get when you go to the movies? What are you going to, when you go into the theater, you're carrying what?
Popcorn.
Of course, because popcorn, they've done an amazing job creating that association. You have that connection. If my nose is runny, what am I going to go grab? I'm grabbing a Kleenex. Yeah. So when it comes to you, is this person has this problem, you want the market to make the association like, oh, it's Alexa, it's Indy. This is the connection. That's when your brand is working. When people say, I know who to, that you have that problem, you need to talk to this person. So that's what you want to listen for, is who's the person and the problem, the context for your help. So strategy number 1, if you currently have a business, just analyze your current clients. So I'd mentioned to you about Katie and how we refine things for her. What we did for her is, so she'd been in business for a while. She talked a lot about like leading with intention, and she had all of these big messages. So we wanted to refine things down for her. So what we did is we just did analysis over her clients. We just went through like, who's your absolute best clients? Who loves you? Who's buying your books? Who's in your audience? Let's just analyze them. It's almost like you have to put a firewall to understand your ideal client. You have to like imagine yourself, like kind of like imagining yourself in a, in a police station, where they have that double way mirror, and your ideal client sitting in the, in that room, and you're just looking, you could see them, but they can't see you. Like you want to look at them objectively separate from you. And so that's what we did with Katie, is we just kind of like lined up all of her people metaphorically. Like we wrote down, who are they and what do they all have in common? And all of them had in common was predominantly they were continuous improvement leaders, either in lean, continuous improvement, operational excellence, in one of those kind of roles. And what they wanted, and that what they loved her for, that they came to her, is they were struggling with, how do I influence these leaders to create a thriving learning culture? They were trying to influence a change in their organization, and they were stuck. And that's why they needed Katie. So what we're looking for is that ideal client, continuous improvement leaders, context. That's what you're looking for. Second strategy, if you don't have any formal clients yet, look at who you've helped in your past career. I believe that no matter what kind of experience you have been helping people in your past career over and over again. And so, like someone like you, Indy, who's leaving your corporate job and you're starting your new business, take a look at the kind of people as an internal consultant or an internal support person who you helped. So that's what we did with Lori. So Lori is somebody where she came out of finance and then she became a Six Sigma person, and she started really helping a lot of the executives really corral them around how they were managing their initiatives. And then that's when she realized, like, oh, I really liked what I was doing internal. I just want to take that to other companies. Like, I found myself in a really unique niche within the organization. So she works with growth-oriented executives. The word executives was intentional because she works with larger companies, and larger companies see themselves as executives. If she was working for a smaller company with other kind of problems, she might have said business leaders or business owners. So she said growth-oriented executives, and the context is they are struggling with prioritization and all of their strategic initiatives. And that was the help that she wanted to provide, which makes sense given her process background, given her finance background, and bringing that all together. And she's a natural mediator, so she knows how to like corral people and get them all on the same page. So we really tapped into who she worked with in the past. Did the same thing with Keith. So Keith was one of my colleagues that I worked with at Disney. And so Keith used to be an entertainer. Then he moved into an HR executive role. And what he identified is like he loves these creative visionary leaders. You could see it all in his branding as well, as he wants to work with these visionary leaders. And the problem was where he came in is he gets those creatives and how they think, but he has a lot of sage in him. So he really likes to help people who they got so many ideas, but they have absolutely no idea how to activate them. Like he understands the visionary mind of, I got an idea, I got another idea, I got another idea. And so he talks about like pulling back the curtain on successful change. You could see he's really talking to his ideal client. He's bringing the curtain. So he works a lot with performing arts organizations. So that's the second strategy. The third strategy is just pay attention to who you're motivated to help and who is drawn to you. So this is what Scott did. So when we were working on trying to figure out his crypto business, like we just paid attention to who kept coming to him. And he kept like getting all these crypto people, all these crypto influencers, all these people who are making like hand over fist, and they were just like dealing with these tax bills and all of that kind of stuff. And so he just started paying attention, and then it was so interesting because when we tapped a little bit more, I'm like, well, why do you care about it? He's like, I always loved, like his whole, like he was like one of those historian kids, who read the encyclopedia for fun, and he always loved the, reading about like the industrial revolution and these companies that come up and like kind of shake up the way we do things in society, so that was always interesting to him. So that made sense. That's what I did. I just started paying attention. Like I just started paying attention. I paid attention who called me. I paid attention to, who I was jumping in to help. It was interesting. Like I was part of like a personal growth community for a while, and we would have like weekend retreats, several different times throughout the year. And people would have all kinds of problems that they were coming up to talk about. Some people were dealing with marriage issues. Some people are dealing with addiction issues. You see a parade of problems kind of like go across your way. And then as someone who is a part of that group, like anytime someone says like, oh, I don't know what I want to do with my career, it's like, oh, I got to talk to you at break. It's like, I cared about everybody's problem there. I want to be friends with all of them. I loved all of them. Everybody who was there, I loved, but it's not like everybody I made a beeline to and say, I got to go talk to you after break. I like, let's talk about your career, like, well, let's talk about your strengths. Like that's what you pay attention to. It's like, I want to help you, so get out of your own head around like, this is what I want to sell, and start paying more attention. It's like, you are so interesting to me. I want to help you so much, and I would do this, for free, whether I could monetize it or not. This is fun for me. And then, when you monetize it, that's what, to Alexa's earlier point, flow, everything we want is flow. None of that works. One of the other tactics, like when I work with my clients one-on-one, like I try those first three strategies, and sometimes That doesn't work. So sometimes I just say, you know what, just take a blank piece of paper out and draw a picture and say, ideal client, reveal yourself to me, and draw it on a piece of piece of paper, or, make a collage. Like with one of my clients, and I'm going to tell you about in a second with Kimberly, she was completely stuck. So she knew she wanted to do her own thing. She had a background as a principal. She had a background as a teacher, but she was doing all of this like personal healing on the side, and she didn't know which way to go. So what we did is we did a collage. So I had her go out and we worked on like collect a bunch of pictures and put it together in a collage, and I'll interview the collage. Now, for some of you who are listening, you might say that's a little too woo. And if that's too woo for you, you don't have to use that. You could draw a picture, you could do whatever. For some of you, it's like who's stuck in your head and you want to get out of your head. This one works. I've used this several times with clients and it totally works. If you can get past that wooey kind of feeling. But it does work. And so what she identified is like, she wanted to weave together like this passion she had, because what she was noticing over and over again in herself and others is there was a lot of stuff with teachers, and she was dealing a lot with teacher mental health. Like she was just seeing like teachers just drained at the schools, like losing these really great teachers. But she's in Florida, and if you are in Florida, there's a huge, many issues in schools in Florida. So she really focuses on helping these teachers stay in love with teaching, because they created this as a career, and she really cared about like the schools keeping these really great teachers. So it was all about teacher retention. That was the problem she wanted to solve. And really, predominantly, it's K through 12, it's where the issues were. And so that's what her business is all about. And that's how we got clarity with her. And then when in doubt. So for some of you, if none of those strategies work, I usually would say, I'm thinking your ideal client is likely a younger version of you, especially if you're a coach. Maybe as a consultant, you might be like, oh, it really bothered me, because I was going up the ladder, that I didn't get leadership support, but then you're still in that coaching kind of role. So for coaches, it's a younger version of you. Got tons of clients. This is why I wound up adding coaches to my mix of who I helped, because I would say like 80 to 90% of people who came to me initially, they thought they wanted to start a consulting business, but what they really wanted to do is start a coaching business. And the reason why, so Denise is a great example. I talk about Denise all the time because it was such a powerful experience. So Denise is a CIO, and she wanted to leave technology, leave her role, start her own business. And so she was thinking like, okay, I think I'll just take like my technology experience and go work with other organizations. She was a CIO in a school. So it's like, maybe I can go into schools and help them with their technology or school systems. But then like, she just wasn't energized by that. Like that wasn't working. And what we did in the work together is we identified like really at the end of the day, like while she was growing her career as a CIO, she was also really mentoring a ton of other women. So she's a Latina woman who wound up at the top of that role. And so she was like she was mentoring all these other people. And she's like, that's who I really want to help, like younger versions of me, other women who want to get to the top, but I want them to do it in a way that I didn't, because she burnt out. And so the context for her help is like, she wants to help rising stars, who are trying to get to the top, and she wants to help them get there. That's a younger version of her. Dolly left his job as a chief learning officer to move into practice, and he does coaching more within the context of an organization. But he had to learn the hard knocks about like, how do you lead transformational change? And he wants to help younger versions of him. I can go on and on and on with tons of my clients who are in that boat. And so if none of the other strategies work, consider perhaps your client is a younger version of you. And the beauty of this, there's a principle out there where it's like you heal yourself by helping others in the ways that you've been wounded. This is the way that you can redeem your struggles in a way by helping other people avoid and sidestep. Like, so when you think about like my passion, like you hear a lot of passion in my voice, but where do you think that passion comes from? It's like from all my screw ups that I did when I didn't do the work, how much money it costs. If you knew how much money it costs for me to go after the wrong client, or not even, or to be not clear, if you knew how much it cost me to create, I can't even tell you it because my stomach starts to hurt. or like just because it was like so awful. And so it's like there's a passion. It's like I'm not letting any of my clients, like I get very pedantic. I'm like, we're gonna do the right business. And it's like, and anytime my clients are like, oh, that I'm like, maybe I could do that. I'm like, oh God, don't do that. It's like make your own, you can make your own mistakes. Like just don't make mine. Like this one's gonna cost you so much later. Oh, I love that. Make your mess your mission. Love that. So those are the 5 strategies. Once you get the person, then you could detail it out. Then you could start detailing out like the demographics, the energy, get more precise in the problem you solve. Do that market scan to understand like why they're not solving it today and why they need you. But I'm not going to lie. This is like I was talking to someone yesterday um about like the work, because like we were in an intro call and she's like, I don't know if I'm ready for the vulnerability. I'm like, yeah, the reality is like when I do this work, I was working with another client a couple days before, and we came up with like such cool positioning for her. Like we're working, it's like it's amazing. But I kind of feel like I'm like, I don't think I help people create it. I think I wrestle it out of them. And it's like it's a wrestling match in some ways. Like, but once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it and it will change everything. But it might take a little bit of wrestling because of what I was talking about before. The scarcity fears, all of the concerns, like I can serve all these people. Aren't I leaving money on the table? The vulnerability of like, I got to get out there. If I'm going to go after my ideal client, that means that I have to come out and be more explicit about like, what is it I want to create? So that's all your next steps. I'm not going to lie. It's not easy because it's vulnerable, and you have to kind of like go through that like rigmarole of some of the fears. But once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it, and it will change everything. I love, thank you, Alexa, that you brought up the flow word earlier. That's when you get in flow. So how do you know when it's complete? I have a few tests for you. Number 1, my Lin-Manuel Miranda test. So you all could tell I'm a pop culture person. I love Broadway. Was obsessed with Hamilton for a long period of time. I'm still kind of obsessed with it. But so how you know you have it right is if you craft enough clarity on this, he can cast that person in his next Hamilton production. You have to have enough clarity that like a director can say, all right, I know who to hire to play this particular role in my next production. That's one test. Another test is your connectors. So you're still going to get business no matter what you do from referrals. But your connectors, if they know exactly how to refer you, then you've gotten to enough clarity. Like when I sit there and I do the branding work, and if I don't know who to introduce my clients to, then it's like, we're not done yet because I don't know who to refer you. Like when you keep talking about this, I'm like, if I don't know how to refer you, we don't have enough clarity. I want to know exactly who to refer you to. And if I can be empowered with that skill set, we've done our work. And if I'm still confused on when to refer you, we have not done this work well. And then the other part is your own connection test. How do you feel? Do you feel sparked to compassion and action or not? Do their problems kind of leave you cold? Just like, okay, fine. I guess I could help them with this. Like, I mean, I could still, if I could spend all day long if I wanted to, like, building more, staying in my OD world. But the idea, it's like, oh my God, if somebody has a question on how to do org redesign, like kill me now. Kill me now. I still rank for org design. I just went through like an SEO audit and I still rank for org design. And it's like, oh my God, like that, like this is not a problem I'm motivated to solve at all. It could make me decent money. If I build a business on it, I'm going to do exactly what I did before is I'm going to recreate my career in my business and I'm going to burn out. It's not sustainable. So that's the other part is pay attention to yourself. So where you might get stuck, feeling like you don't know anyone who is your ideal client. That might be one area that gets stuck. And here's the truth. Your ideal client is always in your orbit. They are going to be drawn to you anyway. You just have to start looking around. It's not going to be somebody that you don't know. It's going to be somebody you do know. And you just have to pay attention to who's around you. The scarcity fears and the fear of missing out. Talked about that. Again, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one, and then you're really going to be missing out. I cannot emphasize that enough. Talking to everyone does not lead to the outcome. The other is that nose to the window pane syndrome. So it's hard to see the lid, it's hard to see the label from inside the jar. So this is where sometimes outside support helps, is it's hard to see it. Like, like you're on the inside the jar. You need somebody else to say, oh yeah, that's who it is. I could see that. That's how I got unstuck ultimately, is getting somebody else outside of me to help me. So that is it on terms of how do you nail your niche. What are your next steps? Or let's just summarize is, one, you got to work through your objections. You're not going to be able to do this work well. Anytime like I'm working on with the ideal client, someone's like, oh, what's their personality? It's like, well, somebody who really appreciates coaching. Like, okay, that's not the personality. We haven't worked through your objections. We haven't worked through your fears yet. We got to back up. Accept that your niche and your brand are about first who, then what. Get the order wrong and you'll constantly struggle with copywriting, with marketing. Get the order right. You'll set yourself up for brand clarity, copywriting flow in general, greater marketing, sales ease, everything will go from there. Use one or more of my 5 strategies to get started. If one works, great. If that one doesn't work, go to the next one. And if you get stuck, ask for help. Every minute you spend spinning, you're not out there helping. Somebody just raised their hand. Who raised their hand?
That was me, Carrie.
Oh, hey, Carrie.
I love the content here. Thank you for this. I guess the fear of getting it wrong could stop me, right? Like I can identify, I'm having trouble identifying the ideal client, but let's say I just went with something that felt right. How often do you see people do that and then come back and refine it or change it later?
So the way I look at our success in this part is like, you do the best you can, you put something out there, and then you see how the market responds. And so success is more like an ice skater, where you're moving side to side. I'm constantly refining everything that I do, refining how I set up my products, refining how it is, because I've learned something new. But it's like, there's a difference between, hold on a second. There's a difference between, having no strategy, and having no thought and just like, okay, fear, I'm just going to go out there and getting it, versus like, all right, I'm going to put my best foot forward, see how the market responds, but you're probably going to be closer into, somewhere in the orbit, like, okay, I don't want to help organizations. I want to help these individuals. I want to help women. I want to help women at midlife. I want to help women at midlife who are struggling, maybe it's the health and wellness, or maybe somewhere else. Like, you'll start to get more clarity on what that problem is. And then you'll start circling the wagons more.
Okay, thank you.
But it's totally fine to, refine your understanding, but it's very different than having to reshape the entire market on who you are and what you do. So like what I did in my interim, that was a big mistake, is I went from my Accelera consulting group, and then I created this second company called the Consultants Institute, which was all about training consultants, trying to move that to brand messaging. Like, that's what's creating all kinds of SEO problems for me, because I wasn't circling the right wagons in the beginning. Yes, I want to help consultants, but for very different reasons. I caught the problem completely wrong. I didn't do any research. I didn't even do any thought. It was just, I want to create courses. I want passive income. And so, anyway, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
So in terms of next steps or taking action also, just get started. If you want the slide deck, email me at betsy@betsyjordan.com. If you need help, more personal, and you got through this and you're like, okay, I need your help, definitely sign up for a free strategic clarity coaching call. Justin, if you wouldn't mind putting that into the chat, that would be great on how people can sign up for that. And then my next workshop is going to be about transcending the fears. So if there are some fears that are underlying this, we'll talk a little bit more like why you might have fears. There's a lot of legitimate fears of when somebody's first leaving corporate and they want to start their own business, that there's going to be fears. There's also fears that are involved with like really pivoting from like success to significance. And there's a bunch of stuff that comes up for us. So we'll be talking about that next month. So as promised, and real quick, and then I'll go into the questions. So this is my what I do framework. So the thing is about when we talk about what we do, we get really focused on like, this is what I do. I do, I do lead workshops and do executive coaching and all that kind of stuff. The where you really want to move a little bit more to is you want to talk a little bit more about your ideal client. So if someone asks you what you do, you start off with a conversation around like, so you know when, and you talk about the ideal client and the problem. Then you talk what you do, and then you talk about the transformation. In this like elevator pitch or how this works, the most important part of this isn't the what I do. It's the so you know and when and what leads to. When I first started working on this, when I started working on this framework, I was actually consulting and I talked a lot about like when I would say, I help ignite leadership and organizational potential, or I help, I talk about like this aspirational thing, but I started switching it where I talked about, so, when a company's grown from this size to this size and the wheel starts falling off and everybody starts finger pointing and then all of a sudden I'm getting these head nods. It's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, what I do is I corral these executives and I get them on the same page so that they can grow smart, not hard. Out of that whole little shtick that I just said, the thing that people remembered wasn't about how I aligned the stakeholders. They remembered the wheels start falling off and there's finger pointing and grow smart, not hard. That's what they remembered. So if I were going to go to a networking event now, I would talk about like, I might shorten this middle one. I would say, so when, like really smart people hit the top of their career, they wonder what it's all for, or like this is a little bit too professional. I don't even know. I would probably change how I would say it. I wrote it and that's not how I would say it. I would say, depending on where I was, I would say, when like, if let's say I was at a women's networking event, women executive event, I would say, when really smart women hit the top of their profession and they wonder what it's for, they're burning out, they're trying to deal with all the, parenting and their kids. What I do is I help them take that amazing career and turn it into a business and brand that they love so that they can achieve everything that they want in their lives. They could have it all, but in their way. And it's like I'm just having a conversation with someone. So we spend so much time like trying to find the magical words when really it's just connecting the dots. So this is where the ideal client clarity comes from. And the benefit is you could talk in a conversational way. So when you've got teams like, executive teams and they've got like these big goals of what they want to do, but they're just like completely dysfunctional. They're fighting with one another. They're jockeying for power. They don't know what they need to do. What I do is I help them get on the same page so that they can be more aligned around what they want to do so that they can, implement their strategic plan without conflict. You just kind of customize it to whatever your audience is. And in the beauty of having this type of elevator pitch, which is not really an elevator pitch. Let's be realistic. The whole idea of an elevator pitch is kind of silly, is that, really who between an elevator ride, who's going to say, oh, yes, that was so compelling. Here's $5,000. I want to work with you. I mean, come on, or if you're working for an organization, like, oh, here you go, click add a card, $100,000. Like that doesn't happen. You're just trying to create a conversation starter where somebody's like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And, like when I teach about the networking, what I would usually suggest people do is when you're at a networking event, always be the first person to ask the other person what they do. And then when you could do that, then you can customize it to that particular audience. So when like if I was at a networking event and somebody I met, was a consulting or coaching business owner, I would be more specific. It's like, so when really smart consultants just like you, really want to take their career and repackage it into their own business, but they have no idea where to start. What I do is I guide them step by step through the journey so that they could have a business and a life that they love. Something along those lines. Like, but if I were going to a different event, if let's say I was going to a party with Scott Martin's, crypto friends, I don't know. I would just say it more in a way like none of them are going to be my ideal client, but I might talk about things in a way that would connect with them, that would make them to refer me to other people. So it's just you customize your messages for those people. So that is the framework. And so we are at the end of our formal question section. I know I went over, so I will stay longer to answer your questions. So I will leave it over to you to ask your questions. Should I do the Jeopardy music while I'm waiting for you all to ask some questions? Jill, what questions do you have?
That's not fair.
Um,
Now,
Yeah,
what if we've identified, what if I think that my ideal client is, if it's a younger version of me, then I'm looking for neurodivergent nerds with ADHD and, uh, abandonment issues and things like that. Because I realize that I like to help businesses. I'm in commercial real estate. So I like to help once they've figured out their brand, then I help them actually make it a brick and mortar, help them get to the next step. Is that, I'm just not sure how to find other freaks like me.
so, Jill, is it okay that I take that question and then we'll come back to you? Okay. So that is so interesting that you just said that, because when I just said I wrestled a really cool brand out of someone, she's got a similar brand around neurodiversity and we try to combine that experience with her consulting experience. And so what we've identified is really helping companies, who are struggling with retention of neurodiverse employees and engagement of neurodiverse employees. And so she's bringing in her background to help them from that standpoint. So sometimes there's like there is a problem that you want to solve. So if you want to help like these real estate companies figure out the problem that you want to help, but some of it might be related to your own experience within those companies. And so you want to help those leaders in a certain way, or you might want to help, let's say there's another woman who's neurodiverse and and she's not necessarily progressing in her career the way that she wants. Maybe you want to help her. So somebody in the real estate who wants to progress her career, but her neurodiversity is creating a boundary, and it's keeping her from moving forward. So there's a lot of different angles that you can go. It could be that you want to help corporate and that feels like the shit you ought to. And maybe you just want to help the younger version of you as more of a coaching business as well. So there's a lot of different angles that you can go. So it's really getting clarity on like my younger version of me. How do I want to help them? What was the problem that I'm trying to solve for anyway? Did I answer that? Did you feel complete with my answer, Heather? Okay. All right. Jill, you're next.
Okay, so my thing is I help others deal with their relationship with anxiety. So my problem is, okay, the others. Like you said, if I'm talking to everybody, because who doesn't have anxiety, I'm talking to nobody. So it's just super hard to really pinpoint, who my audience is. I spoke to you already, and it's like cancer patients, because that's my background. So, and that's what I can relate to. But I'm getting all sorts of clients, like someone having a problem with sleep, and it all results back to the anxiety problem. So, how do I want to help everybody? How do I get out of that mindset?
So the thing is about anxiety is like, and depending on, and you're an expert more in your space. So if I'm not saying this properly, and this is like a training I'm trying to put together that I haven't created yet, but there's a difference between a pain point and a problem. So a pain point is an emotion. An emotion is generated when a need is not being met. And we have several different types of human needs. So we have needs for health and wellness. We have needs for financial stability and security. We have needs for belonging and connection. We have needs as it relates to competence and mastery and autonomy. And we have needs as it relates to self-actualization. So the emotions are happening because a need's not being met. And so there's somewhere in there, like if you're dealing with cancer patients, anxiety could be a symptom when the real problem is there's the health and wellness. You want to help them maybe thrive through cancer or something like that. That's more of a problem, is like cancers, like maybe the problem is cancer's taken over their lives and they, but it's like, you don't want to pay, you don't want to focus your business like you're on the pain point. Like that's a whack-a-mole kind of thing. But you just take like the emotions and you start like almost like breadcrumbs of saying, here's the emotion. What's the human need not being met? And then what's the reason why that human need's not being met? That's the problem I want to solve. So a lot of my clients deal with all kinds of money fears, imposter syndrome. Those are all the emotions, but I'm not whack-a-moling all the emotions. I'm incorporating it or addressing it because really my clients need and deserve. Like what's happening with my clients is they have created success. So they've gotten like the bottom levels of the Maslow. They want self-actualization as well. And there's this perception that I'm going to lose everything else in my foundation, but it's just like we have to rebuild the foundation so that all these human needs get met. And so that's where it's like you have to look at the difference between the emotion, which is the pain point. Overwhelm is a pain point, but overwhelmed with what? It's like, well, I feel overwhelmed on what I'm going to consistently need to do to get clients, because like, but why? It's like, well, I want financial stability. Oh, well, I'm going to help you build a solid foundation for your business that allows you to consistently attract and land your clients. That's the problem I'm trying to solve, not the pain point.
Okay. Yeah, and it's really like pinpointing it down and down, drilling it down, I guess.
Yes. And it's like, it's just following the breadcrumbs, like, okay, here's the person, but the problem isn't their emotions. The problem is the need that's not being met underneath the emotions. And then it's looking at why is that need not being met?
Yeah, okay.
Other
Okay.
questions? Does that feel complete
Thank
to you?
you. Yes, thank you.
Others. And those who are listening in and not on the video, I would love to answer your questions as well. So either you can get brave and get on the video and ask it, or you can put it in the chat, which either way works. No more questions? Do we all feel complete, or is our head spinning? Because I just gave you like I fire hosed you with a lot of information. So if we don't have any more questions, then we can officially sign off. If you are in the Denver area, please connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email. I definitely want to start creating more connection and community here. Jill's husband is going to create like a live networking event for us. And so all of that information would be great. So if you are in the Denver area, please, please, please send me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn and say hello and let me know that you're in the Denver area. And we'll make sure on that. If you didn't get if you want me to get you the slides, just email me at betsy@betsyjordan.com. I just discovered there's a Betsy Jordan with an A who's getting a lot of my SEO. So it's Betsy Jordan with a Y, not an A. And be sure to sign up for what we're going to be talking about next month. So thank you all for being here. Bye.
Thank you so much, Betsy.